So in this video, we're going to build a chat agent. Okay. And this is what's needed before you can now create like a chat interface. So to do so, we'll go to the menu and we'll look at agents, and then we can go over and have a look at what we have already. So we've created a few already. So we're going to create a new one to be able to illustrate this. So we click on it, and what we want to be able to do is we want to be able to give it a name. So in this particular case, I'm just going to call it GenAI agent demo. And what we want to do is start giving it some information. And what we can do is with some of this information is it isn't just about, say, a welcome message, but we can also start feeding information to be able to help the agent to prepare messages for us. Okay, so we just, all right. So that's kind of the first step of what we need to do. So it's very simple, basic kind of high level naming of it. And then the second step is we need to create what's known as tools. Now, what we're going to see here is kind of an initial set of tools. We'll probably see more tools being added to this product as time goes on. So the first one is the main one, is a RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. So this is where we can use a knowledge repository, using an LLM then to be able to query that knowledge repository and augment the results that come back into something that's a bit more descriptive, a bit more into what we're actually interested in seeing. So that's what I'm going to show in this video. We'll have other videos that will kind of look at how to create some natural language kind of query processing engine. So kind of similar to what we have with the RAG, but this is where we might interface in with our database. So we can have that natural language processing within our OCI environment, within our contained environment. So we don't have to send any information out to a public LLM and so forth. And then what we can do is we can create some other custom tools like using, OCI functions and stuff like that on it. So let's go back to the kind of the basics. We're going to do a RAG. Okay. And then what we can do is we can give it a simple name. And so in this particular case, we're going to call it, a Shakespeare RAG. And in this particular case is for a description. We can give it some more kind of information on it. Okay. If there's any kind of, things we want to be able to, other instructions. So maybe, answers are to be in academic format. Yeah. Okay. Then we can tell it what agent we want to use, or what knowledge base we want to use. So if we had a number of different knowledge bases, we could actually incorporate an awful lot of those. And then once we're finishing that, then we can go create tool. All right. So that creates an initial tool. So using the RAG to create an initial tool. So if I wanted to create other tools, say with, other LLMs or other RAGs or the SQL natural language interface, or using the functions to be able to create them, this is where we can build out a more kind of complete and complex tool. So we're not going to build any more on that. So what we can do is we can go next. And this is where we can start putting in certain like guardrails into what we're actually kind of trying to do. Okay. So from things to do with, content moderation, prompt injection, personally identifiable information. So we can say is that, well, we don't want to have anything. So by default is we're not going to put in any sort of guardrails. We're just going to let whatever data is going to be there, inputs and outputs going to be put in. But as you develop, you might want to do things about, you might want to inform the user that there's certain things that are actually happening. So like a personally identified data, you might, do some prompts to expose that, or you might just block them completely, which is maybe a bit more of an extreme kind of scenario. So maybe starting off, you start with disabled, then you might need to update it to inform, and then, in certain circumstances, you might need to block. All right. But it's kind of like, you probably need to let it evolve. So you see what's happening, you learn how it's actually working, and then customize as you go along. Once we're finished all of that, then we're ready for it to go and create. So we just do create agent. The final thing that we need to do is just do an acceptance of using the Llama 3, in this particular case, license for what we need to do. So that's going to be the LLM that's going to be used in this particular case. So once we do that, all of that work will get submitted, and then what we can see is we can track what's actually happening with the creating of the agent by going into the details. We can see the different work requests, and we can get to see how far it's completed. Now this takes a kind of a few minutes to complete, so we're just going to pause there until it's actually completed, and we'll come back to it. We can see now the agent has been developed, so what we can do is we can go and use it. So to use it, we go click on the chat. So it gives us kind of a template interface for what we can use. Here we can select the agent we want and then the endpoint. So we can start asking it a few kind of different questions on what we might want to do. So maybe we start off with, tell me about yourself. Now the response times can vary from kind of a few seconds to kind of up to 30 seconds. So, it kind of depends on how busy the service is and how close the data center is to your particular location as well. Now, so when we get to see here, it starts kind of telling us about different things. Maybe is, so for example, we're talking about different Shakespeare works. So what is the setting for Hamlet? So we get to see kind of the details. So this is where we start looking at it, using the repository, using the books that we put in there, using the LLM then to kind of take that output and construct it into kind of a meaningful answer for us. So we can start asking other questions. What other characters are in Hamlet? So these kind of questions are quite simple, quite straightforward. But what we can do is also look at the original intention of building this particular RAG and this agent is so that we can answer different Leaving Certificate examination questions. So here's some of the questions over the last few years that I've taken from the examination papers. And what we can do is we can take some of those. For example, here's one particular one from 2024 is, Shakespeare uses Hamlet's complex relationship with Gertrude to explore a variety of core issues in this play. All right. Discuss the statement, developing a response with reference to Shakespeare play Hamlet. So this is where we get to see a lot of these kind of different aspects of it. We get to see things to do with traces if we're interested in that kind of thing. It can vary degrees of output in relation to that, but we can also see what are the different citations that is used. So where did it actually get some of the different kind of information from it. If we just take one more kind of question, so this is again from the 2024 examination paper, we can ask the question. And I've shown this to different, secondary school teachers and kind of their responses to what is actually being produced. Is actually quite interesting, which is a topic for another day. And these teachers are also examiners and correctors of the Leaving Certificate English higher level papers. So again, we get quite good detailed answers.